Thank you, Jim. Thank you for the invite. These are challenging times, and I'm so glad that we'll have some good friends with us on this 7-day journey. When you initially asked me to speak, and then you invited me to help organize this series, basically what I did was have the opportunity to put out something that's been going in my head and in our projects for a while. And the way I see it is we really need to act fast. And I've been working on global change for many, many years now. But then we need to actually give examples, show easy ways out. And I'm going to give a short, well, a medium introduction talk to go over some of these issues and how actually the transitioning to a donut economics model, to the use of regenerative economics, the economy of the common good, well-being economy, and the alliance, and actually an initiative which I've been working with, and Steve Waddell is going to be with us in the commenting part of this session today on bouncing beyond. It is clear that we cannot bounce back, and I want to go over some of the reasons why we can't bounce back, and I want to actually show what we've been thinking on how to be able to move on to a new thing. So I'll share my screen and start with a review of why we need regeneration. We needed regeneration over the past 20 or 30 years at least. Sustainability did not happen, and we're getting to very critical tipping points. Many people know about climate change, but I want to give actually a bigger overview of the main issues that we have to be concerned with. And even if we were already working on regeneration, what happened with this beautiful opportunity that this virus gave us, which nature actually sent to us to say, wake up people, this is a fire drill. You can get rid of me, you can get a vaccine, but there is no turning back with planetary collapse. There is no turning back with extreme climate change. So we have the opportunity to take this seriously and think really of how to move forward collectively at a planetary scale to end up with a planet that offers well-being to all life forms and that can keep providing the conditions for us to keep on. So working with biodiversity for decades, I already knew that we had to cross a bridge into a different relationship with biodiversity. All the efforts that we did with IUCN, with the CBD, with the program work in protected areas, I just didn't see those being effective. And we already needed to go across that bridge to that new relationship. And now we're there forcefully having to decide if we want to come back to the old system or if we do want to cross that bridge into a different world. Back in the 80s, 87, when I read the Common Future, Our Common Future, that's 33 years since we came up with a definition of sustainability being the ability for the next generations to thrive. And after 500 million results in Google, we never achieved this sustainability. And the kids are angry. They're angry because Earth is dying. They're angry because we need to act now, and nobody's really acting now. And they're angry because they know they can't eat money. Our generation is fixed on money. Their generation is starting to change that. So I see great opportunity in joining the wisdom of older experts and this youth that really needs to move from pointing fingers and saying who's to blame to actually being able to co-create solutions. So that's our biggest challenge, to co-create solutions together. We are at the tipping points. I mean, 38 degrees centigrade in the Arctic Circle, the huge forest fires around the planet, we're getting to the abrupt climate change that scientists told us about many, many decades ago. Actually, I question if we're not in our civilization's historical moment, just like the Roman Empire collapsed. I think the human global empire is in the process of collapsing. We've lost credibility in the governing structures. We've basically gotten to the planet to a point where people have to migrate. All these things were basically already in documents many decades ago, and we just didn't react on time. I'll go over a refreshing of the planetary boundaries, which is the basis for a lot of our work today in regenerative development. When I started working 10 years ago in the conceptual framework of regenerative development, the planetary boundaries played an important role. And it's also the outside of Kate Raworth's donut. So a lot of people are talking about climate change, but actually, to keep the safe operating space for humanity, we are already in the Anthropocene. This means that the planetary changes are a result of human activity. And it isn't really climate change that has the highest threat to our comfort zone. It's biodiversity loss. And a lot of people don't have that in their radar. The chemical companies and the academia as such have also been able to keep under the radar the huge responsibility that chemicals have in the way we produce our food. And land use change, of course, has to do also with agriculture. And then we have climate change. Now, very interesting aspect is that out of the planetary changes, the global changes, agriculture is responsible for about 80% of them. It's only responsible for about 30% of climate change. But if we do want to save the planet, we have to first quit putting poison on what we're going to eat and allow really regenerative agriculture process, which actually can save the planet by capturing the carbon that's in the atmosphere and putting it beneath our feet in the soil. So it's not written only in reports, in peer-reviewed journals, in big libraries. It's all over the place that biodiversity loss is the real end of the world. And very few people are actually taking this seriously. We worked hard. I was at that time both in IUCN and UNESCO MAP program and through the university, a negotiator in Nagoya, where we finally got the strategic plan and the Aichi targets approved. It was a difficult negotiation. And by 2020, by this year, biodiversity values were supposed to be integrated in all of the accounting. The true value of biodiversity, not as an externality, not as a philanthropic greenwash, but really incorporated all the way into national accounting to be able to live in harmony with nature. 2020 came and we're even worse than we were in 2010. And 2010 was actually the year when we had to have halted biodiversity loss already. I had the privilege of growing up very close with nature, and it's impossible not to become a photographer in a country like mine. These are all photos I've taken throughout our areas, regular areas that are around a day's drive or less from my house. So I grew up with this tremendous biodiversity. I also had the privilege to grow up in a region with huge cultural diversity. And this cultural diversity is disappearing quicker than our biodiversity. And the knowledge embedded in these cultures is vital for learning how to live in this regenerative planet where we need to bring ecosystems back to their functions. The kid on the left, that was a photo of him 3.5 years old. That's my older son. That's him now, and he himself has a child. And on the right is my youngest son. He's now 8. But at 3.5 years, he was already walking through protected areas. Now, the sad part is that he got to see only half the life than his older brother got to see. And my granddaughter might only be able to see 20 or 30% or even less of the life that her father saw. And I think that is something that we owe these children a different future. Laudato Si, the Pope's encyclica, says it very clearly. Mother Earth, who sustains and governs us, who produces various fruit and colored flowers and herbs, this sister now cries out to us because of the harm we have inflicted on her by our irresponsible use and abuse of the goods with which God has endowed her. We have come to see ourselves as her lords and masters, entitled to plunder her at will. The violence present in our hearts is also reflected in the symptoms of sickness evident in the soil, in the water, in the air, and in all forms of life. We have forgotten that we ourselves are dust of the earth. Our very bodies are made up of her elements. We breathe her air, we receive life, and we drink from her waters. So we actually have to solve this using more than just tools, using more than just mechanistic solutions. It is an important transformation from our inner selves, a deep consciousness. We know all the science. We know all the relationships of our planetary footprints, our human footprints on this planet. It's all there. Actually, I always say this is the best scientifically documented planetary extinction. We produce more data every year than in previous years. Lots of information, some knowledge, but it's not this that's going to get us beyond. We need to generate wisdom. We need to think deeply about what we're doing. And one of the reasons I think we lost the ability to create wisdom is because all our educational system is reductionist, it's disciplinary, and we're facing complex problems that need holistic solutions. No university, or very few of them, are prepared to actually work with holistic solutions. We need to move ahead, and to move ahead, we need to get a sledgehammer and throw down the walls between the departments and get these great scientists starting to open their minds. That means we need to reinvent the peer-reviewed journals, which are very reductionist. So we need to move beyond our knowledge system and really start opening up our minds and our hearts. If you look up wisdom in Wikipedia, it is the ability to think and act using knowledge, experience, understanding, common sense, and insight. But the best part is it is associated with attributes such as compassion, experiential self-knowledge, non-attachment, and the virtues such as ethics and benevolence. So are we actually doing this in our educational systems from kindergarten all the way to university? Are we doing it in the political dimensions? Are we doing it in our own lives? So are we going to be mere spectators of a new normal, or are we going to co-create a better future? I'm not going to stay waiting and just looking from behind. We need to move forward. We need to step up. We need to activate. These are kids I've met throughout Latin America, all the way from Mexico down to Chile. And we owe them because they are happy. They are innocent, but they are the ones suffering. They're the first ones to really take the burden. And it's just unforgivable that we, in our academic discussions, don't really know what we're fighting for. We need to actually get these kids a better future. So we do stand in a moment very critical for Earth's history as the Earth Charter starts. It's a moment when all of us as humanity must choose our future. It is a moment when the world, as it becomes increasingly interdependent and fragile, it provides us with great promise, but also with great prayer. So we need to think quickly, we need to act quickly, we need to do quickly. So to move forward, we must really recognize that in the midst of the magnificent diversity of cultures and life forms, which I just went over, we are one human family and one Earth community with one common destiny. If we could get this sentence clear, we'd be in another dimension. If this sentence were taught to all our PhDs, to all our political people, leaders, we would be in a different dimension. We've been told that we need to learn to adapt to climate change. We need to learn to adapt to a collapsing planet. I don't believe this is true. We need to build the future we want. I'm not going to stay sitting and waiting to learn how to live in a planet that's falling apart. We need to take action and together co-create that future we want. We need to realize that we made a big mistake when we started with environmental education, where we told people we had to take care of nature. Nature doesn't need us to take care of it. It just needs us to let it live, let it thrive, and it will give us plentiness. It will give us abundance. But our system is rigged into scarcity. So we need to invert this. We need to tell people, if nature is not functioning, if nature is not alive, you won't be alive. So we need to allow nature to come back. And it has shown in these 5 months vacation we've given it, that it is still willing to help us. It is still resilient enough to build it to a functioning state. It probably won't be the same nature because extinction is forever, but we still can get a functioning planet if we act quickly. As I mentioned, it sent us this virus, not to disrupt our system, but to slap us in the face and make us wake up to see what a disruptive, unreliable, unresilient system we have built over the last few hundred years that doesn't even allow life to continue on this beautiful planet. This virus might have a vaccine, but as I mentioned earlier, these tipping points are leading us to no return. And by the time we wake up, if we don't act now, it will be too late to get back to a balance. So we are nature. We are part of nature. We're not separate from nature. And that has to be clear to all of us. Earth, our home, our home. So humanity is part of a vast evolving universe. It's a dynamic process. Our home is alive with a unique community of life. The forces of nature make existence a demanding and uncertain adventure, but Earth has provided the conditions essential to life's evolution. The resilience of the community of life and the well-being of humanity depend upon preserving a healthy biosphere with all its ecological systems, a rich variety of plants and animals, fertile soils, pure waters, and clean air. This is the Earth Charter. It's 20 years old today. If we would have listened to this 20 years ago, we would be in a different position. So we basically need to reinvent ourselves. We need to open up with new energy. We need to move into a new relationship between humans and our Mother Nature. I used to think of a revolution. I now think we need an evolution. So it's going from ego economy, ego society, ego person to the eco society, to the eco economics, but that is not enough. Those are still mechanistic. We need to transition to Seva. And Isha Black and Danielle Vacha has stated her, that's where I got the information from, is giving more than you take. So it's humanity in service of nature. And that is the transition we need to take. We need to get back that community feeling, that glue that holds communities together. We need to transcend the human thinking of superiority over nature and elevate the importance of cycles, relationships, and care of life. Care of life. And care of life is exactly the feminine principle. The caring for. And Leonardo Boff has worked a lot with the feminine principle. The caring capacity, the feeling of belonging to a greater whole, generating power, vitality, and spirituality. That is the way forward. That is what we have to work with our kids, to be able to empower this new way of society, of community. We already know that GDP never measured development, and we're still using it. In my country, we're still using it. We're worried about the deficit of GDP, and it has a very good correlation with inequality. So we are having examples now. We're actually, the best way to be able to change people's attitudes is by showing them. And I think that's one of the marvelous things that Amsterdam has done with Kate, is actually showing how to rebuild post-COVID to a better way of life. And this makes me question, I'm from German descent, my father's German, I lived in Germany, so I'm using it as an example, questioning what development actually is. As I grew up going to Germany on summer vacations, and I even went to school there for a while, I thought, wow, Costa Rica has to follow Germany's steps. That's what's development about. And then I came to realize that Germany is unsustainable ever since before I was born. And if we look at Germany's donut, yeah, sure, they have the social threshold at 100%, but at what cost? So that means that the German society is living in the well-being it has today because it chewed up the resources, it sucked out the resources from other parts of the planet. And that is not fair. Look at Australia. I mean, gosh, what a way to destroy a continent. That is not development. And now, is this government? Is it business? Or is it us? It is us. This is not government. Government won't solve this. The United Nations won't solve this. The SDGs won't solve this. It is us, the people, who have to shift our way of thinking and doing. Have the people from Bangladesh chosen to live like this? Yeah, their planetary boundaries are way, way within their biophysical capacity of the country, but their social threshold is not there. This inequality throughout the planet has to be reversed. I'll just take two examples, Costa Rica and Chile, both from Latin America, both are unsustainable. Our footprint is above our biocapacity. If you look at the donut, if you look at the social threshold, Chile and Costa Rica are similar. Chile has double the inequality, and that's why the society collapsed last year. People were left outside of the system. Okay, the system was for businessmen, for corporate, for politicians linked to all this sector. Now, Chile has achieved a lower social threshold with a lot bigger footprint. So I would say actually Costa Rica is a better model for development. And if we look at the social progress index in terms of health and wellness, we're at the same level of Germany and Chile is below us. So I dare say that Costa Rica's development model should be the model for Germany to start rethinking its development process. And that is what led me to think of an initiative to regenerate the whole country, regenerate Costa Rica. And I'm not doing it alone. I'm doing it with friends like Kate, like Danielle, like John Fullerton. We have lots of these people on this week with us. So we're just thinking of putting our country into the correct donut. And this donut methodology has allowed us to actually identify the low-hanging fruit. Where do we make the biggest impact? And we have had huge support from all these friends from different organizations globally and nationally. I would need 3 or 4 pages to be able to put all the logos of the groups that are collaborating, friends that are collaborating with us. And basically, it's this concept which I developed many years ago on the integration of these 6 dimensions into a holistic approach, moving away from disciplinarity, moving away from reductionism, and really integrating this at the territorial level, at the landscape level. So it's a holistic development where we recognize that a functioning nature is the basis for all life. And it's this new symbiotic relationship that will benefit all of life forms. Now we need to measure it differently. So we need to measure it with equality, with transparency, with peace, with education, with happiness and hope. We need to move to well-being for all. So basically the actions, and I'll be very brief because I'll touch this again the day after tomorrow when we see places that are applying the donut, is getting back to functional landscapes. And we can do this by turning our regular cattle, which is carbon intensive, it produces methane, to carbon negative cattle production together with savory. And we're in the process of becoming a savory hub. regenerative agriculture, we are one of the highest importers of chemicals per capita in the world. Getting rid of those and turning every piece of agriculture to regenerative will actually get us to being totally carbon negative over a few years. It's not decades. We need social regeneration. We need to get people to participate in decision making, empower them for local governance. We need regenerative economies that are focused on community and life and not just profit. We need to regenerate the culture that glues. For some people, culture is art, it's music, it's theaters. For us, culture is the glue that brings communities together. And it's very, very important to really generate that awareness of our common origin, our mutual belonging, and a future to be shared with everyone. So no discrimination, everything fits together. We need regenerative politics. We need to reinvent our political system. We need to get young people educated to take over political positions, get us old guys out of the president's position, but especially young women. If we had young women in power, this world would be different. And the spiritual component, which academia kind of gets uneasy when I talk about spirituality with other academics. We're not talking about religion. We're talking about ethics, values, deep consciousness, mindfulness, a reverence for life. And how do we do it? A lot of initiatives look at the most complex problems, but they require a huge amount of resources. We can actually solve a lot of our basic problems with very little resources, and that's what empowers communities. Let's get your main issues solved. And I've been working on this for 40 years. The main issues are not the most complex ones. We can actually solve a lot of the issues without any money coming from outside, just by moving our actions. And that allows a community to get empowered and start going up the pyramid. And then, yes, getting more resources, but as they're better prepared to manage them, it's more efficient. So one simple low-hanging fruit. I mean, agriculture is biology, it's not chemistry. If we can shift this around, we're at 280 parts per million in 20, 30 years. Why don't we ask the chemical companies, the chemical agriculture, to put a logo that it is chemical if it's so good? Why do we require the people who are doing it good to spend money to be able to certify organic? So we've done this, we've tried it out, and we're having huge success. We're just launching a project yesterday in our tourist area to convert a tourist area that broke down because of COVID, that they have no food. And instead of giving out food on a daily basis to people that have no money, we are turning them into farmers and getting community farms rolled out. We're working with Ellen on moving the whole cattle system of Costa Rica to regenerative, to carbon negative. We are using other knowledge that's not only academia knowledge. This is a good friend of mine, Manuel Castellanos. He's an indigenous from the Lacandon area in Chiapas. This is a piece of land which was started about 30 years ago. This picture is kind of old. It was 9 years after they got this abandoned, unusable, degraded land to build it back. And Manuel was able to create a forest, whereas all the high tech of this Western university, I won't mention the name, it didn't even get beyond a weed stage. And you can stick your hand in 30, 40 centimeters and you feel like eating this delicious smell of soil. That's 5% carbon in that soil right there. And we have now the science behind it. Finally, scientists are opening up to accepting the importance of capturing carbon out of the sky and putting it beneath our feet. So the science is out there. We also have these huge other fundamental tools, the principles of regenerative economy from my friend John. If we can put them to work within our traditional system and move on the 26th. These are proven things. They work. Now we just need to start using them. Wellbeing Economy Alliance. I'm really proud to be a member of the Global Council. This is a tremendous, powerful platform, which is really taking speed now. Bounce Beyond is this new initiative, and Steve is going to talk about this on the last day. How are we able to support all these initiatives that might be a little bit loose and each one trying to fight a battle? Bring them all together. It's not or, it's and. So how can we join efforts to bounce beyond to a better future? We have also other tools. 7 Vortex is allowing us to map the complexity of our Regenerative Costa Rica program and really work out the individual components which we have to prioritize. We're going to be using Blue Marble evaluation. It's one of the best evaluation processes for complexity. And we're starting to fund this with seeds, an alternative currency, to be able to really escape the traditional system. We'll have seeds on a panel on the 27th. So I truly believe that with regenerative development, we can actually bring back our ecological capacity to be way above our footprint. Now we need to educate for this. So what does this education look like? First, we need to teach these kids to face the challenges that are coming. It's useless to prepare them for professions that won't solve the problems that we didn't solve last century and up to 2020. So the fact that they think that they can rebuild their future, if we give them the hope and if we give them the help, that is the focus on education. So we are answers if we act. Nobody is going to solve this. No president, no United Nations is going to solve it. Only us acting individually and collectivizing that action to community level, to country level, to planetary level. Using principles like the Earth Charter principles allow that to see whatever you want, but principles, ethics, transparency, and getting rid of the concept of soft skills, which universities are still calling soft skills. I call them important skills. These are the critical skills for change. So what do we really need to learn? How do we learn it? Classrooms? Kids sitting in rows with a teacher standing up above their heads? I don't think so. Why do we learn? Where do we learn it? We should be learning out in the world, in nature. And it's ridiculous that we still measure learning with exams, which really have no correlation with the learning process, and even less correlation with the capacity as a professional. I was a horrible student throughout my whole educational process. I just got bored in class. I just couldn't think of why I would be sitting there listening to a teacher that many times never got his feet in the mud. So moving away from competition to collective learning, to co-creating, to actually having every single human being part of it. You need to combine a Nobel Peace Prize, a Nobel Economic Prize, a Nobel Physics Prize with a farmer, with an indigenous person. All knowledge will be necessary. We need to cooperate instead of compete. We need to co-create. We need responsibility. We need creativity, mindfulness, resilience, adaptability, proactivity. We need to move people to act. And this can all be done with passion and with spirituality. I tell kids when I talk with them, who is studying this career because of passion? Very few of them. And I tell, okay, the people who are doing it for passion, look, keep on. But the rest, get up and leave while you have time. Do whatever you want in life, but do it with passion and you'll be successful. We've started these alternative programs at the University of International Cooperation. We already launched the certificate in regenerative entrepreneurship. We got the most marvelous people, a lot of the ones I mentioned throughout my talk, really willing to collaborate and give all their wisdom on to young people. And we're launching these new programs on first responders for regeneration. So let's say, I hate to use a word, but that was the first one we used, the SWAT team for regeneration, to go into degraded areas and have the capacity to regenerate it and build their own lives while they're doing it. And with Regenerative Communities Network that was sponsored by Capital Institute, we have this whole global network that's growing. And so we'll have academic programs, and Jim already mentioned that with Ubiquity and UCI, we're going to be launching some of these programs. We can give the whole academic background online and have the students go to wherever they want around the planet and practice regeneration in sites that are doing regeneration. This is, for me, the future of learning, a global regenerative university. Focus on collaboration, focus on co-creation. We can co-create solutions between Norway and Costa Rica and New Zealand. We're actually running initiatives, and this won't be registered in a degree hanging on the wall. We have to develop something like a passport where we have abilities, success stories, networking for each student. So let us really enjoy this time to start celebrating life joyfully and move on to regeneration of the planet, of us. Leonardo Boff, and this is an older publication, he was already saying that we are in a new phase of humanity. We're all returning to our common house, the earth, the people, the societies, the cultures, and the religions. Exchanging experiences and values, we enrich ourselves and we complete ourselves mutually. And those obstructionist attitudes, even on the part of believers, can range from denial of the problem to indifference, nonchalant resignation, or blind confidence in technical solutions. I don't believe we should be investing billions in machines to capture CO2. The best machine to capture CO2 is all that green that's outside your window. We just have to give it a chance and support it and regenerate these ecosystems, their capacity, regenerate the ocean's capacity to start fixing carbon again in large quantities. The determination which this 6-year-old kid was walking in a biosphere reserve in Honduras, coming to talk with me because she wanted answers. That is what we really need to support. This creativity, this curiousness on how to build a future together through universal solidarity. So, how do you want to emerge? Your community, your country, your planet. And what are you going to do about it? How can you be part of the solution and not just point at the problem? What actions can you take individually? This is what we have to collectivize. And my big question is for my 8-year-old son, will we actually act on time? Is there still time? I believe so. If we wait another 5 years, I don't believe there will be time anymore to reverse the damage that is exponential. Our biggest problem is we were educated not only reductionist, but also linear. And change now is exponential. And we're not capable of understanding what that means. If we give 30 strides walking, we'll go 30 meters in a linear fashion. If we give 30 exponential strides, we go 26 times around planet Earth. And that is a speed that things have picked up on. So thank you for listening. And I would actually like to open it up to Ross and Steve. Ross is a very famous economist. Anybody has heard of eco-villages, has heard of Ross Jackson. And Steve has a huge trajectory. I've learned a lot of the transformation process, transformation thinking from Steve. So I'm really happy to be sharing this with you.